you're going to be asked questions about whether or not a function is one-to-one or whether or not a function actually has an inverse. And you have had questions in the past about a mapping, and they've said, hey, is this the function, is this the function, is this the function, is this the function? And you were taught things like if every input goes to just one output, or if a vertical line scanned across the graph only hits the graph at one point, then you have a function. If a function is going to have an inverse, it means I also have to be able to go backwards, and it still has to become, or still has to be a function. So for starters, if I were to take this function and flip it, if I were to make this the domain and this the range, and switch the order of the mapping, f inverse would look like this. And you could probably see right away that this would not qualify as a function because this input has two separate outputs. So even though f is a function, its inverse, totally not a function. This guy, on the other hand, since 3 goes to 1, 5 to 8, 6 to 9, if I were to switch the domain and the range and map numbers back to where they came from, so since 3 went to 1, 1 goes to 3, since 5 goes to 8, 8 goes to 5, so on and so forth, 6 goes to 9, 9 goes to 6, this also was a function. So this inverse relation is a function. This is where the idea of one-to-one comes from. One-to-one means that every input has just one output, and every output has just one input. The way it was explained to me where it made the most sense was to imagine kind of a big baseball stadium, and the domain is the people, and the range is the seats. And if every person sits down and has a seat, and if every seat has a person, then you have a one-to-one correspondence. As far as these actual graphs go, you probably have already learned about what's called the vertical line test. And if a function passes the vertical line test, so here I'm drawing a bunch of vertical lines and I'm trying to see if they ever cross more than one point. If it passes the vertical line test, then that relation is a function. It will be one-to-one if it can pass both a vertical line test and a horizontal line test. So a horizontal line test says take horizontal lines and go across the graph. If a horizontal line never touches the graph in more than one place, and it also passed the vertical line test, then that function's one-to-one. Because every single point on that grid is going to be associated with just one input and just one output. So this graph would definitely be one-to-one, because it can pass a vertical line test, it can pass a horizontal line test. This graph, while it does pass the vertical line test, if I go across it with a horizontal line, it hits two spots. That means that this output, this y value of, let's say this y value was like, I don't know, 4. I'm just making that number up. There's two inputs that have an output of 4, whatever this x value is, whatever the x value is. So that one output is associated with two different inputs. So this is not going to be one-to-one. It failed the horizontal line test. This last guy doesn't even pass the vertical line test, so it's not even a function, so I don't have to worry about whether or not it's one-to-one. Let me throw one more down here just for kicks and giggles. Let's make the graph look like this. Start here, come down here, go like this. Is this function one-to-one? Would this function have an inverse? And I guess it depends on how you interpret my drawing. But let's first check to see if it passes the vertical line test. If I take a vertical line and I scan this vertical line across the grid, I don't see any place where it's ever going to hit more than one spot. So this is definitely, I try to draw it so that it will pass the vertical line test. Then I might go ahead and take a horizontal line. It's going to look like this. Now imagine this kind of sweeping through here. And I did my best to draw it so that it looks like it won't ever hit more than one spot. But I guess someone might argue that up here it looks like it does. So if you thought that was straight across, then okay, fine. You win this round. But I tried to draw it so it doesn't look like it. And then, so since this passed the vertical and the horizontal line test, this is considered a one-to-one function. And that means I definitely, when I go and find the inverse, that inverse will also be a function. So the short answer is, if it passes the vertical and the horizontal line test, it is a one-to-one function.